I simulated the entire 2023 college football season again to see who would win the national title if it was decided by NCAA 14. This Dynasty file has the complete updated 2023 college football schedule as we knew it. You see week 0 there under the week 1 category, and week 14 having a lot of those games that happened in that final week of the season, just as it happened in real life. So without further ado, let's look at the preseason polls as you expected from the start of the season. Georgia, Michigan, Bama, Ohio State, LSU, all up there. Clemson, Tennessee rounding out the top 10. Some other teams sprinkled throughout here. TCU getting respected after their run to the national title game. And if we look at the Heisman race, the Heisman watch, it looks appropriate. We've got Caleb Williams leading the way. Travis, May, Hartman, and Nix, all guys in the mix. We look at the week 0 or week 1 according to the game results. Nothing too crazy except Hawaii beating Vanderbilt in overtime. The unexpected result there. But let's get to the first real full week of the 2023 college football season. And the first major game, LSU versus Florida State. It was a big one in real life. Florida State coming out on top. We'll see what happens in the sim with these two juggernauts going at it, and LSU came ready to play this time. You see the running back Logan Diggs getting the first down. LSU gets a massive win in the first full week of the season, handing the Noles an early loss that they never suffered during the regular season in real life. Florida beats Utah. TCU ends the Colorado hype train before it even starts. Tennessee has no issues. You see Michigan, Washington, Wisconsin, Ohio State all dispatching lesser opponents. Nothing too crazy except for West Virginia shocking Penn State 28-17 in a big-time victory in the first week of the season. So let's get to the next week. Alabama versus Texas, a major battle between a couple of teams that went to the playoffs in real life, but here they are in double overtime. Alabama doesn't need a touchdown. They just need a field goal, but here they get stopped from getting that touchdown, and so they are just going to go for the field goal. You see Milroe's stat line. He threw the ball 50 times for 386 yards in this game, and it's all up to Will Reichard, who's 1 for 1 in the game, to try and beat Texas, flip the script in the second big game we've seen so far, and Reichard does just that, hitting the field goal, giving Bama the win, 34-31, roll tide. We looked through a couple of weeks, a lot of the top contenders staying intact unless they lost to another top contender, which Texas did to Bama, Florida State did as well. But outside of that, the rest of the top 25 is staying pretty tough. But if we simulate to week 3, the first couple of major upsets, Georgia loses, Ohio State loses to Western Kentucky 20-10, and Washington and TCU, also a couple of big teams falling there. Kansas State eerily losing to the same team they lost to in real life in Missouri. We check in for the Heisman race for the first time since the preseason, and LSU running back Logan Diggs has the top spot. Corum, Travis, Milroe, Williams, also familiar faces, but Diggs, the one that's sticking out for now. LSU strong start. We see Florida State takes out Clemson. Mississippi State beats South Carolina in this next big week. And Alabama goes down to Ole Miss. So some big shifts happening in the college football landscape as we simulate another week. And Oregon beating down Colorado just as they did in real life there. So we go to one of the biggest games of the next week of the season, LSU versus Ole Miss. It was very entertaining in real life. And in this one, the Tigers, once again, another signature win to hang their hat on. Logan Diggs just short of the end zone as the Heisman frontrunner. They get another high-quality win over a top 25 team to hang their hat on. And we see number 6 Oregon falls to Stanford in a major upset. Outside of that, nothing too intense happens in that week of the season. But we jump forward to the next week. We see about halfway through the season, some big teams going down. Notre Dame falls to Louisville. Kentucky loses to Georgia in a big battle between top 25 teams. Ole Miss can't stay afloat. They lose to Arkansas. All of a sudden, the Razorbacks having a strong surge in the middle of the season. We jump to the next week. The big surprise team, Houston, all the way up at number 4. How about that? The Jayhawks at 7-0. And towards the middle, Oregon State, North Carolina losing some big games. Notre Dame coming off of a second straight loss to USC. And how about that? Arkansas, with back-to-back top 25 victories, they hand Alabama their third loss of the season, and the Heisman race has KJ Jefferson up there as a result. nothing but LSU teams, although you see Jaden Daniels suffering the injury. That's going to hurt his Heisman case for sure. We sim another week. The top contenders are rising to the top, but Texas takes out Houston in a major, major battle that takes down the Cougars from their amazing underdog story. Arkansas getting another top 25 victory there, shockingly. Ohio State losing again. They just have not been able to get their footing down, but keep an eye on those Arkansas Razorbacks as they get another win. We sim another week. LSU, USC, Kansas, and Michigan, just the 4 teams we all thought would be there. Georgia loses another shocking game. Clemson, a top contender, goes down. And these top contenders continuing to filter out. And North Carolina losing to Georgia Tech. Notre Dame dropping another. That's 3 straight they've dropped now. So a lot of these teams starting to fade, and the top contenders staying pretty tough. A bye for a couple of these teams as we see USC beating Washington. Kansas, Michigan standing tall at the top. Texas with a loss at Kansas State. That's really going to hurt their stock. Houston continues to slide. And overall, things in the top 25 still showing that the top couple of teams are staying tough. USC and Washington was the big game of the week. Number 6 Washington versus number 1 USC. As we saw, the Trojans were able to stay perfect. Washington, late in the game, Michael Penix Jr. trying to find his way into the end zone. He does, but it's too little too late for Washington. The Trojans win. They move to 10-0. And so we advance another week. USC 11-0 now. They beat Oregon, Kansas, and Michigan, both undefeated. The Jayhawks, definitely the surprise story of the season, but you see those SEC teams, LSU, Arkansas, Georgia, all still intact there at the top. Things are definitely heating up as the season moves on. You see Oregon and Oregon State losing a couple of big games to drop them down a couple of spots. And KJ Jefferson, because of Arkansas's great season, he's now the top name in the Heisman race. Logan Diggs has definitely faded as the season's gone on, as we expected. But now let's go to the biggest game of Kansas' season. They're the number 2 team in the country. They need to get this win if they want to realize their national title hopes and continue to march on this season. They play a top 25 battle versus their rivals in the Sunflower Showdown. It is a major, major matchup. Arguably one of the biggest games in Kansas's entire history. Late in the game, they're down 3. A huge 4th down conversion, so they're going to hurry up to the line. Daniels changing the play at the line. 37 seconds. Got to find a way to score. He tries to scramble, and the ball is fumbled. Kansas State recovers and overcomes, turning the ball over 5 times to beat the Jayhawks in a massive game. You can see Jalen Daniels cannot believe he made that mistake that ultimately cost Kansas the game. USC and Michigan are the top 2 now. Bama somehow all the way up at 3 despite 3 losses. And look at those SEC teams. LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, all threatening near the top. And as we look at the top 25, it's once again the story of the teams cannibalizing themselves at the bottom and the teams at the top staying in stack. So we sim to the last week of the season. Michigan beats Ohio State. LSU beats Texas A&M. Arkansas takes out Missouri. Georgia beating Georgia Tech. And the top teams all solidified and ready for a conference championship week. Alabama losing that game to Auburn. It finally drops them from number 3 all the way down to number 18. So that leaves us with these final rankings of the regular season. In Conference Championship Week, the biggest game, 3 LSU, 4 Georgia. Winner gives themselves a great shot at the national title. They just need one of the top 2 to lose. And that leaves us to the Pac-12 title game. USC, number 1 in the country, playing a surprising Washington State team. Number 6, Florida State, still with fringe title hopes, playing Miami. And then number 2, Michigan, playing Wisconsin, who's a solid 10-2 squad. And Kansas, also with a fringe national title shot. They play Texas in the Big 12 title game. Ball State and Bowling Green in the MAC title, arguably the most important. But let's get to the SEC title game. Georgia versus LSU. Bulldogs versus Tigers. Georgia trying to defend their 2 straight national championships. LSU making their 2nd SEC title game under Brian Kelly. And it's a rematch of the prior season in 2023. And so it's a big one. LSU really wanting to make this happen. but they never stood a chance. Georgia, 27-2 late. They had no issues, and Kendall Milton takes this one easily into the end zone. Georgia blows the doors off of LSU, and now the ball is in the court of USC and in Michigan. And so here we go to the Pac-12 title game. It's Washington State versus USC. The Trojans, the number one team in the country. Lincoln Riley trying to get his team to the national title game. But the Cougars and that Pac-2 magic is just too much, and they get stuffed on 4th down and 9. Trojans get blown out at home in the Coliseum, and Washington State gets a Pac-12 title. You see Cam Ward can't believe that they've done it. USC goes down, the number one team in the country falls, and so that leaves us with this play of the game where they get stuffed on 4th down. The ball now falling into the hands of Michigan, the Wolverines needing a win after Washington State shocks the country. So here it is, Wisconsin versus Michigan. The Wolverines, the number 2 team in the country in the Big Ten title game, and the Wolverines are battling with Wisconsin late. Braylon Allen gets into the end zone for a touchdown to tie it up. Minute 31. Here goes their kicker. He puts it up. It's good. Wolverines up by 3, but Wisconsin has other plans. Chimere Dike with 27 seconds left. Wisconsin suddenly has the lead, which means Michigan now has to come down to a Hail Mary to keep their title hopes intact and in their own hands, and it is deflected away. So close, but no cigar for Michigan. They lose to Wisconsin, and Luke Fickell gets a Big Ten title under his belt, and KJ Jefferson wins the Heisman Trophy. Ray Davis in second, Dijon Edwards, Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy rounding it out. KJ Jefferson not only has won the Heisman, but will play for a shot at a national title in a shocking decision by the committee. Florida State, Kansas, Michigan, USC, all just missing out. It is instead a team that did not play in their conference title in Arkansas that will give us an all-SEC national title between Georgia and Arkansas. As you can see, it's a 50-50 split as these two teams have absolutely packed the Rose Bowl for this national title game that is all SEC. The Bulldogs, heavy favorites going into this one, so we'll see what Arkansas is able to do versus a Georgia team that's been great all season. And look at that. In the fourth quarter, they're up by 11, but here comes Carson Beck. He doesn't want to let that happen. He scores a touchdown on an 8-yard run, making it 21-16, and he comes back just one drive later. Another rushing touchdown, back-to-back from Carson Beck. He's running around like Johnny Football out there. And then late, Arkansas answers, but he doesn't care. It's a hat trick to Ladd McConkey now in the end zone. Carson Beck, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. It all comes down to this, 4th and 5, and a draw play by Arkansas. They lose the national title due to some questionable play calling for sure. And that gives Georgia the national title. It's a pretty expected result that had a lot of unexpected twists and turns in order to get to this conclusion. Georgia wins the national title as a 2-loss team, and while you look at that, they celebrate as the confetti rains down. Let me know down in the comments if this was the result you were expecting and what I should do with this game and maybe with further ones in this series. As you can see, a dejected KJ Jefferson cannot believe they found a way to choke that. Player of the game is Xavier Sori Jr., a defensive player, which is a shock in itself. And the Bulldogs, as Kirby Smart has handed the trophy, win their 3rd straight national title, something they weren't able to do in real life, but something they were able to accomplish in this sim.